Hey guys, tonight we're heading deep into the jungle. So deep you can feel the vines cling to your ankles and the air sticks to your skin like steamed rice. You're not on a vacation. You're trudging through thick green silence. Cicadas shrieking overhead, dodging roots, and maybe one or two suspiciously large insects. Beneath your feet, centuries of secrets, lost temples, crumbling towers, whole forgotten cities that once pulsed with life. Now they're just echoes beneath the trees. And here's the kicker. You probably wouldn't survive 5 minutes here. Between the monsoons, malaria, and let's be honest, your complete lack of jungle survival skills, you'd be begging for a smoothie and a bug-free bed by sundown. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And, hey, let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. I love seeing that little global map light up. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You arrive in a time before the map had lines, before Cambodia was Cambodia, before any of these temples had names you might recognize. The landscape is a slow, heaving sea of green, broken only by rivers that gurgle during the wet season and vanish into dusty cracks when the rains flee. This isn't the Angkor Wat on the postcards, not yet. The people here, early ancestors of the Khmer, are quietly shaping something extraordinary. You don't see towering spires or polished sandstone yet. Just stilted houses above floodplains, children herding water buffalo with sticks, and elders chewing betel leaf while watching clouds crawl across the sky. You walk past a wooden shrine, simple and slumped, but humming with incense. Someone offers you a coconut. You try to decline politely, but it's handed over anyway, warm and oddly fizzy. The language floats past your ears, soft syllables, gentle rising tones. You don't catch the words, but you understand the rhythm. This is a society built around water. It trickles into every conversation, every plan, every belief. Rain doesn't just fall here, it dictates life. If it's too early, rice dies. Too late, disease blooms. You stand barefoot in a paddy, mud squishing between your toes, and realize this isn't farming. It's choreography. Historians still argue whether these early settlements were truly centralized kingdoms or just loosely organized clusters, villages in alliance or competition. But one thing is clear, something was brewing, slowly, methodically, the same way a tree grows around a rock or a vine loops back on itself. A king emerges, not the jeweled kind, not yet. Think more rain collector-in-chief. He doesn't wear a crown, just a finely woven cotton wrap dyed with indigo. He lives on a raised wooden platform and listens more than he speaks. His primary concern? Making sure the next generation doesn't drown or starve. You crouch beside an old woman sorting herbs. She's muttering to herself in phrases you don't understand, snapping stalks, grinding powders, creating what might be medicine or just something to keep leeches away. Her fingers are stained yellow from turmeric, and her smile, when she finally offers one, is missing 3 teeth. As night falls, the air cools by one disappointing degree. You lie in a hammock between 2 poles, listening to frogs that sound like laughing toddlers. Fireflies blink like confused stars. The sky above is heavy with moisture, and the moon has vanished behind a haze that smells faintly of wet mango. You think of how little anyone outside this region knows about these early Khmer people. No one in Rome was writing about them. The Chinese may have heard whispers. India traded beads and bronze, but didn't bother to map them. And yet here they are, building, adapting, laying the invisible groundwork for one of the greatest empires Southeast Asia would ever know. A soft drumming begins, hands on stretched skin. You follow the sound, and stumble into a gathering under palm leaf torches. It's not a festival, it's something quieter, a kind of evening check-in where stories mix with chants and elders pass knowledge like bread. You sit, cross-legged, and feel the vibration of the drum in your chest. No one rushes, no one posts. The stories are slow, looping, and slightly confusing. You drift in and out of them like a boat in a lazy river. A boy sits beside you, eating what might be a cricket on a stick. He offers you one, you politely decline, he laughs, then eats yours too. This isn't a lost civilization yet, but it is a hidden one, tucked away from global headlines, rich in ritual, swimming in rice paddies and silent stares. They don't know they're part of something big, they're just trying to get through another rain season. But you've seen the temples beneath the trees, the roads that pulse beneath satellite maps, the hydrological genius that will one day puzzle engineers with master's degrees. And as you finally nod off, hammock rocking like a lazy swing, you hear someone whisper a word you don't understand. It might be a name, or a prayer, or just a joke. Either way, you smile. The sun slips over the jungle horizon, and you blink awake to the thrum of insects gearing up for another impossibly humid day. You stretch, your limbs stiff from hammock sleep, and the air wraps around you like a hot, wet blanket. Today, you're learning how to build a city the jungle can't find. Yet. Your guide, a stoic man with arms like carved teak, beckons you toward a shallow canal. It's not wide, more like a trench, but it glistens under the morning light, like a purposeful scar across the earth. Water is life, he says, tapping the muddy edge with his heel. But too much, and it becomes your enemy. The early Khmer knew this, really knew it. Not just in the bring an umbrella way, but in the engineer your entire civilization around it way. What you're looking at isn't a ditch, it's part of a massive, interconnected hydraulic network. Historians still debate whether this early infrastructure was fully intentional or a beautifully evolved mess. But from where you stand, it's elegant. Reservoirs called barrays, canals, moats, spillways, and rice paddies, all woven into a water symbiotic system. You trudge along a path flanked by lotus ponds, man-made, not accidental. The petals nod at you like they know you're impressed. Underneath your feet, ancient soil systems regulate flow. When the rains fall too hard, the surplus doesn't flood homes. It gets redirected, absorbed, or stored for the drier months. The barrays are particularly mind-blowing. You climb to a grassy rise and gaze over one. It stretches like a sleepy inland sea, bordered by berms that double as walkways. The largest one you'll see later, West Barray, could still rival modern dams in ambition. This one is smaller, but still big enough to host a floating market or two. A boy skips stones across its mirrored surface. The ripples roll gently outward like time itself remembering something. Nearby, workers in loose linen robes are lining a canal with laterite blocks, reddish, pockmarked, quarried nearby. They lay the blocks carefully, angling them just so, to encourage slow drainage. You crouch beside them. One of the workers grins and offers you a clump of sticky rice wrapped in banana leaf. It's warm, sweet, and a bit gritty with specks of river sand. He points to the canal. This will feed the southern fields, he says, if the spirits agree. Ah, yes, the spirits. Nothing here is built without them. Every reservoir has its guardian. Every flow must be coaxed, not forced. Your guide takes you to a stone platform, half submerged in a still pool, where monks occasionally chant to awaken the water. You're told it's less about blessing the liquid and more about aligning the world, human, divine, and natural, in that specific order. A light rain begins to fall, fat drops that plop onto the surface, stirring tiny whirlpools. You're handed a palm leaf hat and look instantly ridiculous. A nearby child laughs. You bow grandly. They clap. You continue your walk and come across a curious sight, a reservoir with steps leading down in tiered layers like a sunken amphitheater. "This one sings," someone says. You tilt your head. Sure enough, as the rainwater trickles down stone channels, it hums, just barely, a ghost of a tune. This isn't just infrastructure, it's performance, it's art with purpose. You stop at a junction where 5 channels intersect. There's a carved stone guardian here, part crocodile, part dragon, its mouth wide in a frozen yawn. No one knows exactly what it represents. Some say it wards off floods, others think it's symbolic of the underworld's appetite. Historians still argue whether these guardian figures were merely decorative or served as warnings. You run your fingers along the mossy snout. It's slick and cool. You whisper something into its mouth, just for fun. Now your guide points upward, toward what looks like an earthen embankment lined with reeds. That used to be the king's water, meaning the royal reservoir, reserved for bathing, rituals, or just gazing reflectively at one's own power. You imagine a king wrapped in gold-threaded silk, pacing that very bank as servants fanned him with peacock feathers, probably sweating profusely, maybe yelling at the sky for raining too early. A hawk circles overhead. Monkeys chatter from a fig tree. Somewhere nearby, someone plays a flute, off-key, but charming. The jungle presses in on all sides, but you start to realize this place was never lost. It was just very, very good at hiding. The cities beneath the canopy weren't swallowed overnight. They were built to flex, breathe, and vanish if necessary, like ghost towns made of water. And as you squint through the trees, your eyes catch the faint outline of a stone causeway. Overgrown but proud, you follow it, stepping between cracked paving stones, ankle-deep in moss. At the end of the path, a gate rises. Carved figures leer down at you, some smiling, some not. A sandstone lintel bears a scene of God's taming rivers. It's worn, half erased by time, but the intent is clear. The people who built this didn't just survive nature, they curated it. And now, centuries later, you stand ankle-deep in proof. A dragonfly lands on your nose. You try not to sneeze. You duck under the gate's archway, its carved figures still watching with those blank sandstone eyes, and step onto a dirt path once packed solid by carts, sandals, and the occasional elephant foot. The air here shifts, cooler, drier, almost reverent. You're entering a city, but not one with traffic lights or glass towers. This city breathes in temple chants and exhales incense smoke. Welcome to Angkor Wat at its peak. But don't expect postcard perfection. The spires are freshly blackened with soot from thousands of butter lamps. The steps are worn smooth by generations of barefoot monks. The walls are thick with lichen, and bats dangle from corners like sleepy punctuation marks. You're not on a tour. You're walking into a living, breathing metropolis built to impress gods first, humans second. Someone tugs you aside as a procession lumbers past. Ox-drawn carts carrying polished copper basins, woven mats, jugs of fermented palm wine, and a very confused goose. You give it a reassuring nod. It does not nod back. At the temple's main causeway, you pause. It's wide enough to drive a car down if cars existed, but instead it's full of chanting pilgrims, ash-covered dancers in slow motion, and a man selling fried tarantulas on sticks. You pretend not to notice. The temple rises like a mirage, impossibly symmetrical. You count the central towers, 5, shaped like lotus buds. "They represent Mount Meru," someone whispers to you. "The center of the universe." You nod solemnly, though you're mostly distracted by a monkey trying to steal your scarf. Inside, it's cool and dim. Faded murals stretch across the corridors, scenes of gods battling demons, celestial dancers twirling in impossible poses, and soldiers marching with tidy rows of top knots. You squint at one panel that seems to depict a prince arguing with a fish. Historians still argue whether it's symbolic of fertility or just a badly drawn dinner. You wander deeper. Every turn leads to a chamber more silent than the last. At one point you realize you haven't heard your own footsteps in minutes. You've entered the core where time slows and even mosquitoes hesitate to buzz. A priest appears, as if conjured from incense. He doesn't speak but gestures toward a sandstone basin full of lotus blossoms. You kneel. He dips a wooden ladle into the water and sprinkles your shoulders. The droplets are cold and smell faintly of jasmine and clay. This isn't a tourist ritual. This is the city reminding you. We are not ruins yet. Outside, the sun sharpens. You shade your eyes and watch as two royal guards march past, their armor stitched from scaled leather, spears taller than you, expressions like carved furniture. They're escorting a delegation from a neighboring city, probably here to talk about rice, or boundary stones, or one too many wandering cows. You step off the temple causeway and into the city proper, dusty roads winding past workshops, shrines, and stilted houses made from dark wood and thatch. You smell lemongrass, fish paste, and the faint metallic tinge of fresh forged tools. A child runs by with a kite made from palm leaves. Behind him, an elderly woman squats by a clay stove, roasting snails and humming a tune that seems older than the bricks beneath her. You pause and listen. The melody sticks. You pass a weaver's stall. Threads hang in rich reds and jungle greens. The woman working the loom nods to you but never stops her rhythm. Thump, slide, pull. She's weaving a pattern said to mirror the stars. No one knows which stars. She doesn't explain. You don't ask. Further down, you spot a scribe, seated, cross-legged under a fig tree. His fingers are stained black with ink, and he writes on palm leaves with a thin, splintered stylus. He's copying a law about fish taxes, muttering to himself in a tone that suggests he does not support the current tariff structure. You agree silently. You duck into a stone corridor near a side temple and are immediately hit with a cool gust of air. Inside, two students are reciting mantras beside a sleeping cat. The teacher opens one eye, nods at you, then returns to his nap. You get the sense that education here runs on naps and repetition. You exit into a small courtyard and find yourself face to face with a massive bas-relief. A sea of dancing apsaras, divine nymphs with mischievous smiles. One is missing a nose, another looks like she's holding a smartphone. You blink, you're just tired. You step back into the street just as a storm breaks. The sky darkens and rain falls like it forgot how to be gentle. Shopkeepers rush to tie down baskets. Children squeal and slide through puddles. A boy offers you a banana leaf to use as an umbrella. You thank him with a deep bow. He shrugs and sprints off, laughing. Rain in Angkor is not an interruption. It's punctuation. It pauses conversations, refreshes courtyards, resets the world for the next breath. At the end of the path, a gate rises. Carved figures leer down at you, some smiling, some not. A sandstone lintel bears a scene of God's taming rivers. It's worn, half erased by time, but the intent is clear. The people who built this didn't just survive nature, they curated it. And now, centuries later, you stand ankle-deep in proof. A dragonfly lands on your nose. You try not to sneeze. The storm has passed. The streets glisten. The air smells like wet dust, cooked rice, and the peculiar sweetness of something fermenting, possibly fruit, possibly fish. Now that the city is rinsed and refreshed, it's time to get a little more personal. You've seen the temples, the processions, the scholars and scribes, but let's be honest, you're curious about the ordinary folks. What did people here actually do all day? How did they wash up, get dressed, brush their teeth, if they even did? Spoiler, they did, but you're probably not going to love the details. You start your day with a visit to a modest house built on stilts. Beneath the floorboards, chickens peck at the earth and pigs snort in the mud. Inside, a woman is heating water over a clay stove. She offers you a seat on a woven mat and a cup of something warm and cloudy. You pretend to sip. A young man enters, holding what looks like a bundle of twigs tied together. "Toothbrush," he says, grinning. He proceeds to chew the end until it frays into a bristle, then scrubs his teeth with it like a man on a mission. The twigs come from a tree with natural antiseptic properties. Historians still argue whether this early dental care truly prevented decay or simply flavored the breath with a woody zest. Either way, he seems proud. Next, a girl shows you her best sarong, a long wrap of silk dyed with indigo and turmeric. It's beautiful, if not wildly practical, for the humidity. She explains the dye process, which involves soaking plant leaves in fermented liquids and then pounding them underfoot, sometimes for days. You smile and nod, all while mentally thanking your washing machine back home. Down the road, you're led to a sort of community wash area, large clay basins filled with water, soap made from crushed rice, husk ash, and a scrubbing stone that looks suspiciously like it used to be part of a temple wall. Women chatter as they clean their sarongs, children, and occasionally the neighbor's monkey. Fashion here is both minimal and symbolic. Jewelry isn't just pretty, it's spiritual armor. Men wear braided bracelets believed to ward off evil spirits. Women pin jasmine blossoms behind their ears. Even toddlers wear tiny anklets that jingle as they waddle through mud puddles. You ask about bathing. The answer is enthusiastic and involves a demonstration. Buckets of water are poured over heads, soap is scrubbed on limbs, and privacy is provided more by custom than barriers. The jungle doesn't judge. You politely decline a full rinse, though a child insists on splashing your shoes. You thank him. He runs off with your sandal. Mid-morning brings the market. You pass rows of sticky rice cakes wrapped in banana leaf, dried fish with glassy eyes, and baskets of insects that glisten like gemstones. You pause at a stall offering healing powder. No label. The vendor explains with a completely straight face that it cures headaches, jealousy, and bad singing voices. You buy some just in case. At another stand, you see what looks like a tankini hanging beside monk robes. "Bathing dress," the vendor says proudly. "Modest for temple days, comfortable for boat races." You raise an eyebrow. She nods solemnly. "Also protects from leeches." You walk on. It's now early afternoon, and time for work. Not yours, of course. You're far too busy observing. But your host leads you to a small workshop where men are chiseling sandstone into temple decorations. The air is filled with dust and the rhythmic tap of hammer to chisel. One carver is working on a lotus motif, muttering about his apprentice who accidentally gave a dancing apsara 6 fingers. Historians still debate whether these errors were symbolic, deliberate, or just the result of extreme humidity and low lighting. But you're too busy admiring the fluidity of the lines, grace carved in stone. Back outside, you help a boy carry jugs of water from a communal well. They're surprisingly heavy, and he walks faster than you. His reward, a sugar palm candy wrapped in a leaf cone. "Yours!" A sticky handshake and a bruised ego. Later, you visit a healer's hut. It smells of crushed herbs, wood smoke, and boiled ginger. A woman with eyes like polished teak invites you to lie down on a woven mat. She rubs a paste of turmeric and lemongrass into your temples and mutters words you don't understand. Your headache disappears. Or maybe you just got drowsy. Either way, you feel calmer than you have in days. Before sunset, you return to the home you started in. Dinner is being prepared, fish grilled in banana leaf, water spinach stir-fried with garlic, sticky rice pressed into tidy mounds. A jar of pickled papaya is passed around. You try it, regret it, smile anyway. A rooster hops up onto the porch, announcing bedtime like he's read the wrong script. You settle back onto the mat, your fingers tracing the woven pattern beneath you. The city hums in the background. Soft voices, a bamboo flute, the occasional frog chorus. You realize that life here, despite the climate, the bugs, and the very enthusiastic dental twigs, isn't that different. People want to be clean, to look good, to feel safe. They want stories, songs, something warm to eat. You exhale slowly. The night wraps around you like a silk sarong, warm and faintly perfumed, and somewhere in the distance, a monkey jingles its stolen anklet. Dawn returns, soft and golden, seeping into the thatched walls like a lazy cat. Today, you're invited somewhere a bit more glamorous, the royal grounds. Yes, you, still barefoot, mildly sunburnt, and harbouring suspicions about last night's pickled papaya, are going to see how the elite of Angkor relax. You begin your walk toward the palace district, through narrow stone paths edged by lotus ponds. The air is richer here, less cooking smoke, more sandalwood, and fresh blossoms. Someone has swept the path with a palm broom, and tiny flower petals have been deliberately scattered in your way. You pretend it's for you, it's not. The royal compound rises gradually, not with imposing towers, but with precision. Elevated wooden buildings rest on stone platforms, their roofs sweeping up like bird wings, layered with carved tiles. A guard nods as you approach, his pike gleaming in the morning sun. You're not sure if you're actually allowed in, but no one stops you, so you glide forward with the confidence of a misplaced tourist in an open-air museum. At the heart of the palace lies the Queen's Garden. Not a metaphorical title. This is a real, lush, sprawling maze of palms, lilies, tamarind trees and herbs planted so neatly they resemble embroidery. The Queen, whom you only glimpse from afar, sits beneath a painted parasol, attended by handmaidens brushing her hair with ivory combs. You're ushered politely away before you can wave or make an awkward joke. You wander instead into a shaded path flanked by flowering vines. The air is cooler here, laced with mint and a faint buzzing from bees that seem far more organized than you are. Near a stone basin, two women are arranging offerings: banana blossoms, rice cakes, and a little ceramic turtle. You're told the turtle is a fertility symbol. You nod slowly and step back respectfully. And then you see it, the crocodile moat. It's not huge, but it's real, a shallow, murky trench around a ceremonial pavilion, home to at least 2 visible crocodiles and probably more that you'd rather not count. They keep bad luck away, your guide says. You wonder whether the crocodiles themselves have thoughts on this career path. Historians still debate whether moats like this were genuinely defensive, purely symbolic, or simply a way to recycle large aquatic reptiles from other religious ceremonies. You suspect it's all three. The pavilion they guard is stunning, pillars of carved wood painted in deep red and gold, a roof covered in palm thatch and inlaid with reflective shells. You remove your sandals and step inside. The air smells of incense and cooling tea. A low bench holds musical instruments, bronze gongs, reed flutes, and a set of chimes that resemble an oversized wind mobile. Someone begins to play, a slow, meandering tune that drips like honey. You sink to the floor and listen. Outside, birds call from the treetops. The crocodiles do not contribute musically. Next to the pavilion sits a library, not of books, those don't last long in this climate, but of palm leaf manuscripts stored in lacquered boxes. Each strip of palm leaf is etched with tiny script, then darkened with soot and wiped clean, leaving the letters crisp. The texts range from religious mantras to legal edicts to what might be early horoscopes. you spot a young girl sitting cross-legged, reciting a passage aloud. A monk gently corrects her tone. You join them for a few minutes, mumbling along even though you understand nothing. It doesn't matter, the rhythm is enough. It's hypnotic, like a lullaby sung by the architecture itself. As the sun climbs, the palace grows busier. Courtiers arrive on horseback. Servants ferry baskets of betel nut, bundles of cloth, trays of pastries covered with delicate leaves. A royal astrologer waves his hands at the sky and declares that today is a good day for planting lemongrass and resolving grudges. You take that as permission to forgive the monkey that stole your sandal. Sort of. Lunch is served in the outer courtyard. You're handed a dish of cold noodles with herbs, a bowl of sour tamarind soup, and something that looks like a roasted beetle on a skewer. You try everything, you don't regret it, much. Afterwards, you're led to a quiet corner of the garden where women weave garlands from frangipani and hibiscus. You sit with them, fumbling through the knotting technique, your flowers slipping through your fingers like damp soap. They giggle, then show you again. Slower this time. Nearby, a cat curls on a warm rock, blinking at you like a miniature guardian. You blink back. It remains unimpressed. By mid-afternoon, the palace begins to quiet again. The queen has retreated indoors. The musicians nap beside their instruments. Even the crocodiles seem still, basking like logs that sometimes remember how to bite. You linger by the edge of the moat. A servant brings you a small clay cup filled with iced tamarind drink. It's tangy and cold, and for a brief moment, you forget about modern life entirely. No phones, no Wi-Fi, no inboxes full of unread messages, just water, wood, blossoms and reptiles with a royal sense of entitlement. As you make your way back through the garden, you glance once more at the Queen's pavilion. It's framed perfectly by two towering sugar palms. A garland hangs from a branch, fluttering in the breeze like a sleepy blessing. You think to yourself, this was never just a jungle. This was a kingdom disguised in green. And somewhere behind you, the crocodile blinks. The jungle road calls again, this time not toward temples or gardens, but toward something more subtle, more ingenious, the highways and byways of the Khmer Empire. You start by following what looks like a slightly raised ridge in the earth, overgrown with vines, its edges softened by centuries of leaf-fall. But your guide points proudly. This was a road. You squint. It doesn't look like much. No cobblestones, no street signs, no traffic cones. But the further you walk, the more you notice. This road, though reclaimed by the jungle in places, runs remarkably straight. It doesn't wind unnecessarily, it doesn't erode underfoot. And in some stretches, the soil under your feet crunches oddly, like it's embedded with something shell-like. Your guide smiles and kicks at the dirt, revealing compacted layers of crushed laterite, sandstone, and yes, snail shells. The Khmer builders used whatever local materials worked. These weren't just roads, they were conduits of empire. Some of the old roads were so well built that even now, centuries later, they show up on satellite scans as ghostly lines through the trees. Others are still walkable, trails that connect Angkor to distant cities like Beng Mealea and Preah Vihear, many miles away. Historians still debate whether these routes were part of a grand imperial grid or simply a series of regional connections patched together as needed. But from your view, feet slightly blistered, forehead mildly sunburnt, they feel intentional. You reach a rest point. A small stone shrine marks the spot, covered in offerings, half-burnt incense, betel nut, a mango that's seen better days. Behind the shrine is a square pool, probably once a rest stop for travelers. You dip your hands in. The water is cool, if slightly frog-scented. Further along the path, the road dips, and you notice something peculiar. As the terrain slopes down, a channel appears along the side of the road, lined with stone. Drainage, your guide says. Of course it is. These weren't just paths for dry feet, they were flood-resistant lifelines. Nearby, you find a stone causeway raised above a marshy patch. It's made from laterite blocks arranged like a checkered puzzle, each one heavy enough to crush a foot if dropped. A local legend claims that the workers who placed them had to pass a test of strength, patience, and mosquito tolerance. You walk the length of it slowly, imagining elephants loaded with rice, jars of fermented fish paste, bundles of silk, and a particularly grumpy diplomat bouncing in a palanquin. At one point, you spot a peculiar plant growing in the cracks between the stone slabs, bright green, shaped like a star. Your guide plucks one and crushes it between his fingers. "This plant only grows where the soil breathes," he says. You nod solemnly. Then realize you don't know what that means. It turns out some Khmer road builders left deliberate air gaps in the sublayers, spaces filled with coarse plant fiber, designed to allow drainage and slow erosion. In other words, some of these roads breathed. You pass a broken milestone. It's worn and crooked, but still bears the faint trace of Khmer script, possibly a distance marker, possibly a tax post, possibly a warning about local crocodiles. You can't tell, but it adds to the mystery. A group of boys passes you on the trail, barefoot and laughing, carrying baskets of tamarind and sticks of grilled banana. They move fast. You try to keep up. You do not succeed. Later, you cross a wooden bridge that creaks ominously with each step. Beneath it, a stream flows sluggishly past, brown, lazy, full of dragonflies. The bridge is old but solid, its supports sunk deep into mud. Its railings are carved with naga heads, mouths open in mid-hiss, protective spirits or very stylish snakes. Some Khmer bridges were architectural marvels. One near the ancient city of Kampong Tom spanned hundreds of feet, built from hand-cut stone blocks without a drop of mortar. It stood for nearly 900 years before collapsing under a truck in modern times. A poignant reminder, ancient engineering sometimes handles elephants better than Toyotas. The road veers uphill, your legs complain, your guide is entirely unaffected. At the top of the rise, you stop and look back. From here, you can see the layout. Roads aligned with temples, paths directed by rivers, every element flowing together like veins in a body. The jungle has tried to cover it, but the skeleton remains, elegant and firm. You sit on a flat stone under a banyan tree, eating a piece of dried jackfruit someone handed you earlier. It tastes like tropical bubblegum and nostalgia. A cart rolls by, wooden wheels creaking, pulled by a pair of oxen who look mildly offended by your presence. As the afternoon heat thickens, you spot a rest house, a dharmasala, tucked behind a cluster of sugar palms. These roadside shelters once dotted the Khmer routes, offering weary travellers a place to rest, pray, or just recover from mosquito trauma. Inside, a monk sweeps the floor with a bundle of reeds. He glances up, smiles, and nods for you to sit. You do. The stone is warm from the sun, the silence wraps around you like an old blanket. Here, surrounded by trees, stone, and sky, you feel the road itself breathing beneath you, alive, still, waiting. And then the monk says something in a slow, gravelly voice. Only the forest forgets. The road remembers. You exhale, leaning back against the cool wall. The trail stretches on, winding through time, memory, and earth. You've only walked a few miles. The empire built thousands. You wake the next morning to the smell of steam, wood smoke, damp rice, and a hint of fried shallots riding on the breeze. You're in a village on the outer fringe of the empire now, and today's lesson is both humble and magnificent. Today, we eat rice, endless, glorious rice. It's being steamed in clay pots, pounded in giant mortars, woven into offerings, sculpted into temple snacks, and talked about with more reverence than most people reserve for royalty. Because here, rice isn't just food, it's identity, currency, culture, survival. You're handed a bowl before you can even ask. It's hot, fluffy, and dotted with herbs and shreds of grilled fish. You sit cross-legged on a bamboo mat surrounded by people who eat in slow, deliberate silence. No phones, no rush, just chewing and nodding. Your host, a spry man with exactly 2 teeth but enough wisdom to silence a room, explains through your guide that the fields here produce 2 crops a year, sometimes 3 if the rains behave. The secret? The beret system you saw earlier, and an intricate network of irrigation dikes and sluices that predate modern plumbing by centuries. You take a walk to the nearest paddy, the mud sucks at your sandals, and your calves start to complain immediately. A group of women in conical hats stand ankle-deep in water, planting rice seedlings in neat rows. They sing in a slow, rising harmony that floats like incense. Historians still debate whether these planting chants were purely functional or carried spiritual meaning. One theory suggests they were coded prayers for a good harvest. Another says they just helped everyone keep the same rhythm. You hum along anyway. It feels right. Your guide points to a small shrine tucked under a sugar palm, the spirit house of the rice guardian. Inside, a carved wooden figure holds a tiny bunch of rice stalks and what looks like a very miniature parasol. Offerings are laid before it, bits of coconut, bright blossoms, and a shot of rice wine. You bow politely. The guardian deserves it. Further down the path, a wrinkled monk invites you into his thatched hut for tea. His robes are stained with years of turmeric and ash. He pours you a steaming cup of something dark, bitter, and oddly smoky. You sip. It tastes like roasted bark and quiet contemplation. The monk recites a poem, one he says has been passed down through generations. It's about a farmer, a buffalo, and a stubborn patch of mud. The ending is ambiguous, but the message is clear. Rice gives, but it doesn't forgive laziness. He grins at you afterward, revealing a gold tooth. Work hard, or you eat weeds. Back in the village, a group of children are having a contest. Who can carry the heaviest basket of husked rice on their head without spilling it? You try. You fail. The basket tips. The children erupt in laughter and hand you a consolation banana. Later, you're shown the storage system, giant woven silos raised on stilts, coated in natural insect repellent made from crushed leaves and pepper extract. One boy claims his grandmother once hid a chicken inside to protect it from a thieving neighbor. You believe him instantly. Rice is even used in medicine here. A local healer demonstrates by mixing rice flour with coconut milk and turmeric to make a paste she applies to bug bites. You offer your arm, and she slathers it gently. You smell like dinner. It helps. Lunch is, unsurprisingly, more rice, but this time it's sticky and sweet, mixed with jackfruit and topped with sesame. It's so good you forget your surroundings for a minute and nearly inhale a clove. In the heat of midday, a lull falls over the village. Hammocks sway gently between posts. Even the dogs nap. You lie back under a thatched awning and watch the clouds drift over the paddies, their reflections shimmering in the water like dreaming gods. You wonder what the empire would be without its rice. The temples, the roads, the courts and crocodile moats, none of it survives without this humble grain. And yet, the people you meet treat rice not with fanfare, but with quiet respect. It's part of their rhythm, their breath, their sleep. A farmer sits down next to you and offers a rice cracker. It's crisp, salty, and probably older than your sandals. You chew thoughtfully. He says something softly. Without rice, we would have only stories. With rice, we can listen to them full. And there it is again, that gentle, echoing truth of this place. Rice isn't just what sustains the body, it sustains the empire's memory. As the sun begins to lower, casting gold over the green fields, you take one last walk through the paddies. A heron flaps lazily overhead, a frog leaps from your path, splashing into a murky canal. And then, from somewhere behind you, the monk's voice drifts through the air, half chant, half lullaby. A rice song, a slow, swaying reminder that here, even food hums with history. You wake to the echo of a bell, soft, distant, more vibration than sound. It's temple time again, but today you're not just admiring towers. You're here to look beneath them, inside them, through them. Because what most tourists don't realize is that Angkor's temples aren't just buildings, they're machines. Today, you're exploring the empire's sacred geometry and the quiet marvel of Khmer engineering. Your guide takes you to a smaller temple, Banteay Srey, carved from pink sandstone that glows like warm clay in the rising light. From the outside, it looks delicate, almost miniature. But the carvings, intricate, swirling patterns, mythic battles, tiny dancing gods, are so sharp they feel alive. A butterfly lands on a lintel. You both admire the craftsmanship in silence. The alignment of the temple is precise. Every stone, doorway, and courtyard is placed according to cosmic principles. You pull out a compass. Sure enough, dead on east-west. The sun's path determines the temple's spine. You're walking a building that functions like a calendar, a sundial, and a star map all at once. Historians still debate whether Khmer architects worked from detailed astronomical blueprints or simply followed inherited design practices passed down through generations. Either way, the result is stunning. Your guide explains that many Angkor temples were built to reflect Mount Meru, the mythical center of the universe in Hindu and Buddhist cosmology. The central tower represents the mountain peak, and the surrounding galleries are the mountain ranges and oceans. So, in a way, every time you step into a temple here, you're climbing a cosmic model. You hike to the top of the central tower. It's steep, the steps are short, narrow, and seemingly designed for people with hooves. You crawl up sideways, clutching the balustrade. When you finally reach the top, sweating and mildly humbled, you look out and realize you're eye level with treetops. The jungle breathes around you, the wind speaks, and from this height, everything below aligns. The reservoirs, the canals, the roads, they all point subtly to temples like this. They weren't just spiritual centers, they were gravitational anchors. You take a deep breath. The air smells of old stone, morning dew, and incense long burned away. Inside the upper sanctum, a priest quietly sweeps the floor with a bundle of reeds. He doesn't look up. You hear the faint jingle of a charm bracelet, bells worn around his ankle to keep spirits and squirrels away, depending on who you ask. The priest lights a candle and gestures for you to sit. You do. The flame flickers, casting soft light on carvings that spiral like vines. Gods riding crocodiles, warriors turning into birds, a woman calmly balancing a mountain on one hand. You ask about the misaligned tower at a nearby temple, Prasat Tom. He nods. It is said, he whispers, that the king wanted to build a temple to rival the gods, so the gods shifted it. You chuckle. He doesn't. Apparently, the gods take architectural critiques seriously. Later, you explore Tarkeo, a temple mountain left unfinished. The stone is bare, uncarved. Scholars think lightning struck it during construction, a divine warning, or perhaps funding ran out. Historians still argue whether the abrupt halt was spiritual or simply logistical. But standing among its unadorned blocks, you feel something raw, ancient, and strangely relatable. Everyone's had a project they didn't finish. You descend toward another temple, Prayer Khan. This one sprawls like a maze, corridors colliding at odd angles, doorways shrinking the further you walk, as if designed to remind kings how small they truly are. You brush your fingers along the walls, feeling the notches left by chisels, the indentations worn by palms long gone. In one corner you find a room with no ceiling. A tree has burst through, roots spilling down like thick ropes. The jungle has moved in. Nature and geometry now share a lease. You pause in the hall of dancers. Above you, dozens of apsaras twist in frozen ecstasy, stone figures caught mid-spin, eyes half-lidded, lips curled in permanent smirks. You stare for a moment too long. One of them might have winked. Outside, a small boy is selling paper fans painted with Angkor motifs. You buy one, it breaks immediately, you thank him anyway. He beams, you sit by a lotus pond, its surface glassy, pierced by blossoms the colour of fading sunsets. A cicada buzzes nearby, then stops abruptly, as if reminded this is sacred ground. Your guide joins you and hands you a piece of charcoal. "Draw," he says. You laugh, then do it anyway. You sketch the temple, poorly. It ends up looking more like a melted sandwich. He says, "Still good?" You remembered the center. That's what matters here. The center, the alignment, the intention. You walk away slowly, your feet brushing fallen frangipani petals. Behind you, the temple fades into the trees, into the light, into time itself. But the geometry, the quiet math of gods and stone, lingers. And as the sun tips westward, casting shadows that line up, just so, you realize, you've been walking through a map made of prayer. You wake to a low, rhythmic drumming echoing from the treetops, not thunder, not a festival. This is something older, something ceremonial. Today, you're about to see the more dramatic side of Angkor, parades of royalty, armies of elephants, umbrellas of silk, and spears that gleam like polished bone. You've been invited to witness a royal procession. Sort of. It's not clear if this is rehearsal, reenactment, or something that never stopped in the first place. But what you see is unmistakably grand. You stand along a broad stone causeway, the same one you walked days ago, now swept and sprinkled with lotus petals. Down its center marches a line of dancers and musicians, flanked by guards wearing ornate headdresses, bare chests painted with ash and vermilion. Their feet slap against the stone in unison. Then come the elephants. Oh yes, the elephants. They move slowly, deliberately, their feet padded with cloth and their tusks capped with decorative gold. You notice that some are painted with swirling symbols, spirals and eyes, meant to bless or protect depending on the day. Atop one elephant sits a prince or general, you can't tell which, shaded by an enormous parasol, the Khmer equivalent of a floating crown. He does not wave, he does not smile. He just stares ahead, face unreadable, as if rehearsing diplomacy in his mind, or perhaps wondering if he left the incense burning at home. Behind him come the ceremonial umbrellas, dozens of them held high on long poles. They shimmer in the sunlight, bright yellow, deep red, sea green. These umbrellas aren't for rain, they're for status. The more umbrellas you had, the more important you were. Some kings reportedly had entire forests of parasols following them around like polite jellyfish. Historians still debate whether the umbrella bearers were monks, nobles, or specially trained attendants. But one theory suggests they doubled as gossip filters, keeping the royal head shaded from both the sun and ill-timed whispers. Your guide nudges you. "That one," he says, pointing to a man dressed in tiger-striped cloth and gold earrings, "is the royal elephant master." You watch as he whispers something to the elephant beside him. The creature shifts, then lifts its trunk like a salute. You attempt the same gesture. The elephant snorts. Further down the procession are the soldiers, some carrying curved swords, others long spears, still others clutching what appear to be elaborate slingshots. Their armor is mostly lacquered leather, overlaid with bronze plates, but a few wear mail made of linked copper rings. You can hear the jingle with every step. One of them catches your eye and grins. You grin back. He winks. It is deeply unsettling. And then, from the crowd, a booming voice shouts something in ancient Khmer. A fanfare of conch shells answers, and everyone drops to one knee as a figure approaches, an older man in golden robes walking barefoot, holding a ceremonial staff topped with an orb of quartz. His head is shaved, his arms tattooed with swirling patterns, and his pace is slow but steady. You assume he is a priest? Or a high official, or the keeper of stories, maybe all three. He walks directly up to a small altar at the edge of the road. A bowl of rice, a sprig of mint, and a burning candle await him. He kneels, whispers, and the candle flickers out. No wind, no breath, just gone. The crowd exhales. This is no ordinary parade. It's a reaffirmation, a public, ritualized reminder of balance between heaven and earth, ruler and ruled, past and present. You follow the tail of the procession into the public square, where a kind of informal feast has broken out. Women pass around platters of roasted banana, grilled catfish, and betel nut wrapped in leaves. Someone offers you a sticky rice dumpling. You accept, even though you're not entirely sure what's inside. Near the base of a small temple, musicians gather with wooden xylophones, gongs, and bowed instruments. The music begins, winding, high-pitched, hypnotic. You sit beside a child chewing sugarcane and listen. Your guide tells you about Khmer war elephants, how they were trained not just for battle, but for formation. They could move in grids, respond to drums, and even pull back if needed. Much more disciplined than most soldiers, he says with a smirk. Historians still argue whether these elephants were truly strategic weapons or more symbolic muscle, but one thing's certain, they knew how to make an entrance. The royal guard passes again, now disbanding into small clusters. Some remove their helmets, others sit beneath trees, chatting and sharing boiled eggs. You watch a soldier delicately fix his comrade's hair, fussing over a topknot like a stylist before a red carpet event. Suddenly, a hush spreads. A new figure appears, a young woman dressed in pure white, her face painted, her hands folded in front of her like flower buds. An Apsara dancer, she steps forward and begins to move, not wildly, not quickly, but with the precise, measured elegance of someone balancing time itself on her fingers. Each gesture means something: water, wind, promise, eternity. You don't need translation, you feel it. Her dance is for the gods, yes, but it's also for you, for the road, for the elephants, for the parasol shadows that stretch across the stone. As she finishes, a soft cheer rises, not loud, just enough to let the moment settle. The crowd disperses. People return to daily tasks, washing bowls, repairing sandals, sweeping temples. But the memory of the procession lingers like perfume in humid air. You wander through the quieting square, crunching roasted peanuts, and think to yourself, in Angkor, war and worship, elegance and elephants, all move in the same rhythm. You may not have a parasol, but you're walking the same road. It's evening now, and the sun droops low over the canopy like a sleepy eye. The light has turned golden, brushing the world with an amber softness that makes everything look a little more magical than it probably is. But you don't question it. Not here. You've left the grand temples and royal grounds behind and wandered into the veins of the empire, its markets, its nighttime rhythms, its food, its smells. And oh, the smells. This is Angkor after hours. The marketplace you enter isn't a neat plaza with tidy stalls. It's alive, crowded, irregular, haphazard in the best possible way. You duck under woven canopies, step around dogs sleeping with enviable calm, and sidestep a toddler who is very enthusiastically chasing a duck. Someone hands you a skewer. You don't ask what's on it. You eat it. It tastes like smoky, chewy mystery, with a glaze that is definitely sweet and probably fermented. It's delicious, and possibly illegal in your home country. Lanterns swing from thin bamboo poles, casting pools of orange light across baskets of spices, turmeric, tamarind, cinnamon bark, dried lime leaves curling at the edges like scrolls. You pick up a tiny pouch labeled in scrawled Khmer. "What is it?" you ask. The vendor smiles. "For dreams," she says. You do not ask follow-up questions. Nearby, a man is pounding something in a mortar the size of a barrel. You peek inside. Mangoes, salt, chili, sugar, lime juice. He notices you watching, grins, and scoops out a bit with his hand, pressing it into a leaf and handing it to you. You take a bite. Your soul briefly leaves your body. Sweet, sour, spicy, salty. Your taste buds conduct a meeting about what just happened. A mango salad, technically. A religious experience, emotionally. In the next stall, someone's selling bundles of dried riverweed sprinkled with sesame seeds. "Crunchy," says the vendor, snapping a piece in half for you. You try it. It tastes like the world's healthiest potato chip, and possibly a pond. Historians still debate how much of Angkor's market economy was formalized, taxed, counted, regulated, and how much was free-floating barter. Some evidence suggests standard weights and measures. Other sources hint at highly personalized pricing strategies, also known as whatever price the vendor thinks you'll pay with a smile. You stop at a tiny apothecary booth. Glass jars line the back wall, filled with things that squirm, crumble, or glow faintly in the dim light. Dried frogs, tiger balm, crushed pearls, something labeled ghost powder that is probably ground chalk. Or not. You purchase a tiny jar of wind tea because the label says it helps lighten the chest and banish inner fog. You figure it can't hurt. As you meander through the alleys, you notice something charming. People aren't shouting here. No one is aggressively selling. Everyone speaks in that same slow, rhythmic cadence you've grown to associate with storytelling. Transactions are conversations. Purchases come with advice, gossip, or jokes. At one corner, a storyteller has drawn a small crowd. He wears a wide straw hat, carries a fan, and narrates a tale while slowly peeling a mango with a knife. You stop to listen. His tale is about a prince who fell in love with a goddess disguised as a fish, and the trials he endured to win her watery heart. You understand maybe 5 words, but you get the gist, especially from the exaggerated expressions and the audience's occasional bursts of laughter. You laugh too. The storyteller catches your eye and winks. A child offers you a cup of pandan jelly in coconut milk. You accept. It's green, it wiggles, it tastes like dessert made by a very relaxed wizard. You finish it in 3 spoons. Somewhere in the market, a small band begins to play. 2 string fiddles, wooden flutes, hand drums. The melody is haunting but comforting, like a lullaby from a time before lullabies were written down. You pass a woman selling fabric embroidered with golden thread. She beckons you over and drapes a piece across your shoulder. It's absurdly elegant. You look like a confused royal. She nods approvingly and tells you it will bring good dreams. You believe her. Further along, you find the food stalls start to thin. The crowd dwindles, the air cools. You enter a quieter space, still part of the market, but now shaded by large fig trees and lit by fireflies and quiet lanterns. This is where the gossip happens. Elders sit on mats, sipping tea. Someone's grandmother is explaining a neighbor's mysterious illness. which may be due to moon spirits or a disagreement over fish sauce. You can't be sure. Someone else shares a recipe for sour tamarind soup that supposedly cured a merchant of lovesickness in only 2 spoonfuls. You nod solemnly. In the distance, a temple bell rings again, soft, far off, like the sky itself is sighing. You sit by a pond at the edge of the market. The water reflects flickers of torchlight and the occasional drifting moth. A monk walks by and hands you a single mango blossom. You thank him. He says nothing, just smiles and walks on. The night deepens. You hear the faint click of frogs hopping across stone. You breathe in the market one last time. Smoke, sugar, salt, song. This wasn't just commerce, it was communion. And as you stretch your legs and walk back toward your resting place, full of mangoes, stories, and probable digestive experiments, you think, no empire can be truly lost if its food still lingers in the air. The jungle is quiet again, but it's not the kind of silence that feels empty. It's the thick, patient hush of something ancient, something slowly breathing just beneath the soil. You've left behind the chatter of markets, the flare of temple ceremonies, and even the warm laughter of mango sellers. Today the jungle tells a different story. You're here to witness what happens after the crowds leave, when the rituals end, when the scribes stop writing and the dancers step down from their pedestals. You're here to see what the jungle remembers. Your walk begins at the edge of a collapsed gopura, a temple gate once proud, now a heap of mossy blocks. A strangler fig has split it clean in half, its roots like stone-seeking fingers prying open history. You place your hand on the bark. It's warm, alive, and suddenly, so is everything. The trees around you grow impossibly tall, their canopies knitting together like cathedral ceilings. Vines loop from branch to branch like garlands forgotten after a festival. The air is still, thick with moisture and a faint sweetness, rotting fruit, crushed leaves and thyme. You step carefully. The path isn't marked, but you sense where to go. A dip in the ground where water once flowed, a line of half-buried stones, a corridor of trees growing suspiciously straight. And then you see it. What used to be a library, or maybe a shrine. Only the base remains, sandstone blocks, their carvings barely visible under lichen and years of leaf fall. You brush some away. A figure emerges, a dancer, a monk, a monkey, with unusually dignified posture. Historians still debate the function of these satellite temples. Some think they served as spiritual checkpoints, others as sacred rest stops. One theory suggests they held the personal records of royal scribes, which, if true, are now being eaten by termites with truly elite taste. You sit on one of the fallen stones. It crumbles slightly under your weight, sending a lizard skittering across the moss. You don't chase it. You're starting to understand the rhythm here. Nearby, a small pool reflects the sky. It's murky, overgrown, but unmistakably human-made. Once it may have been part of a monk's retreat, a place for meditation, a place to drop your thoughts into the water and watch them ripple away. Now, frogs claim it. A fallen statue lies half-buried nearby, its face calm, serene, tilted sideways like it just decided to nap for a century. One ear is gone, a vine curls through the eye socket. You imagine it's seeing everything and saying nothing. You move deeper. The ruins get stranger. Tower bases with no towers, causeways that end in trees, walls that loop back on themselves. It's as if the jungle took the blueprints, read them, shrugged, and then grew however it pleased. And yet, you sense a pattern. Temples face east, doorways align, even the trees that have swallowed stone seem to grow along old ceremonial lines. It's not chaos, it's slow, leafy order. You climb over a mound of bricks that used to be a roof. Your hand brushes a carving, just a corner, a lotus petal, sharp despite the years. The silence here isn't empty, it's thick with memory. You reach a clearing. In the center stands a single stone spire, still upright, though tilted like a thoughtful head. Around it, half-collapsed galleries curl like fingers closing into a fist. This is a hidden temple, not on maps, not on tours, no signs, no fences, just you, the vines, and the very quiet ghosts. A breeze kicks up. Leaves fall slowly, like ash. Your guide appears, when did he arrive, and sits beside you without speaking. Together you watch the temple for a while. It doesn't move, of course, but something shifts. You see the tree? He finally says, pointing to a fig sprouting from a crack in the central spire. You nod. It's holding the temple up, he says, and breaking it at the same time. You both sit with that thought for a moment. It's true, the jungle did not destroy Angkor. It cradled it, hid it, tucked it away like a child, folding a toy into a blanket for safekeeping. The people didn't all vanish. Some became farmers, some moved east, some stayed and tended shrines long after the kings had left. Some still do. And the temples, those that weren't dismantled stone by stone for newer projects, simply melted back into the earth. Rain did the rest. You walk back slowly, past the pools, the trees, the spires being held and broken. You feel the hum beneath your feet, like something old still pulsing. You step around a root and glance back. A statue that wasn't visible before now watches you. Its mouth is curled in the faintest, strangest smile. The clouds hang heavy overhead today, grey, full, undecided. It's as if the sky itself is holding its breath. You've returned to the heart of the empire, but this time you're not watching it rise. You're here to witness it unravel. You begin by tracing your steps through an abandoned shrine near the Beret. It's quieter than before. No monks sweeping, no pilgrims lighting incense. Even the frogs seem subdued. The water in the reservoir is low. Mud shows through in cracks like an old pot left too long in the sun. A child tosses a pebble. It doesn't ripple far. This is how decline begins, not with a scream, but with a slow, persistent forgetting. Your guide walks beside you without speaking for a while. Then softly, there were signs. And yes, there were. Fewer offerings, fewer repairs, canals silted, stones loosened, and the rain, too much, then too little, then too much again. Historians still argue whether Angkor fell because of environmental collapse, political fragmentation, enemy invasions, or just a kind of imperial exhaustion. The truth is probably all of it, braided together like a fraying rope. You reach a stone bridge that once pulsed with traders, envoys, farmers, monks, all bound for Angkor Thom. Now it's cracked in the middle, vines dangling through the break, like threads torn from a loom. You cross anyway, slowly. On the other side, the city feels faded. At the old southern gate, a headless deity leans against its pedestal. A monkey climbs its arm and scratches behind its ear. The jungle presses tighter than before. You push through it. The moat around the city is sluggish. Algae collects in corners. A stork stands motionless on one leg like a statue performing penance. Inside the walls you sense the emptiness. Grand walkways are overgrown. Temples stand but without music. A single dog sleeps in a doorway, tail twitching in some ancient dream. You sit on a crumbling balustrade and listen. In the distance you hear chanting. Not loud, a whisper of a whisper. You follow it. A group of elders sits beneath a Bodhi tree reciting prayers in call and response. No ceremony, no audience, just habit, like breathing. One of them offers you a bowl of water. You drink. It's cool and a little earthy. She smiles, touches her brow to yours, and returns to her chanting. It starts to rain. Not a downpour, just a persistent drizzle. It kisses your arms, your face, the ancient stone all around you. The water gathers in the crevices of the statues. The lion guardians look like they're weeping. You visit an old inscription house, a library of etched stone. Inside, walls bear lists of kings, donors, offerings made. Some names are chipped away. Some were never finished. You trace one with your finger. It ends mid-word. Your guide appears again, handing you a palm leaf fan. To keep the past from sticking, he jokes. You fan gently and watch as termites crawl through a crack in the wall, hauling specks of the empire on their backs. This is the long, quiet ending of greatness. No final battle, no catastrophic fire, just silt in canals, drought followed by flood, roads unused, titles forgotten. And yet you find a shrine still active. A young monk sweeps rainwater from the steps with a bundle of reeds. He sees you, bows, then returns to his work. Inside, candles burn, incense curls. A woman places rice before a statue. A child watches her closely. The empire may have faded, but its breath still lingers. As you walk back toward your shelter, the path is slippery. Moss creeps into your sandals. Your robe clings to your arms. But your heart is full, because you realize decline isn't absence. It's just another phase of presence, softer, quieter, like the hush after a song. You stop and look back once more. The towers of Angkor Thom rise in the mist, blurred but still there. They don't shout, they don't beckon, they simply endure. The air is drier now. The jungle feels thinner, more brittle. You've left the Angkor heartland behind, not in your heart, but in your footprints. Today, you're leaping forward in time. Centuries have passed, dynasties have shifted, roads have vanished, but one thing hasn't changed: curiosity. You're following a man with a map, dusty boots, and absolutely no idea what he's about to find. It's the 1860s, and the forests of Cambodia are thick with rumors. Stories of temples swallowed by the trees, of cities of stone, of gods buried under vines. These aren't bedtime stories, they're footnotes in travelogues, sketches in the journals of monks, whispers carried along merchant trails. Enter Henri Mouhot. A French naturalist and explorer, Mouhot isn't exactly Indiana Jones. He's polite, deeply inquisitive, mildly sunburned, and, let's be honest, a bit underprepared for what he's about to wander into. You join him on a morning when the mist still clings to the branches like lace. He's got a guide, a notebook, a compass, and a machete. Not for adventure, just to avoid being swallowed whole by bamboo. He doesn't know he's about to rediscover Angkor Wat. To him, it's a ruin noted in Buddhist chronicles and whispered by villagers. But when he sees the central towers rise above the canopy, he stops breathing. You watch from beside him as he stares, slack-jawed, at the main gate. He's not the first outsider to see it. Portuguese traders and Japanese pilgrims had arrived centuries earlier, but Mouhot's writings would electrify the European imagination. He stumbles into the complex, his boots crunching over centuries of leaves. You trail behind, barely able to keep up, as he mutters in French and sketches feverishly. More grand than anything left to us by Greece or Rome, he scrawls. That line will make him famous. Historians still argue whether Mouhot was the right figure to receive that glory. He didn't discover anything. The Khmer people always knew it was there. Monks still prayed. Villagers still lit incense. But in Europe, the idea of a jungle city, a massive mathematical spiritual marvel hidden by trees, captured imaginations faster than any travel journal ever had. You watch as Mouhot squints at bas-reliefs, struggling to interpret the epics carved into stone. He misreads a few, thinks some Hindu deities are Roman gods. He's doing his best, bless him. He sets up camp near the moat, swatting away mosquitoes the size of birds, and trying to boil drinking water without falling into the reservoir. He interviews locals, puzzles over temple orientations, and occasionally weeps when the sunsets light the towers like flames. In his letters, he marvels at the scale, the silence, the sheer elegance of the carvings. A monument of a lost civilization, he calls it. You want to tell him it was never lost, it was just resting. As he sketches another temple, his pen shakes slightly. Fever. The jungle doesn't let explorers pass unchallenged. He falls ill weeks later, likely from malaria. His grave lies far from Angkor, but his notebooks survive. Years pass, decades, others follow. French scholars, archaeologists, photographers, and eventually tourists. In the early 1900s, French colonial authorities begin restoration. Teams of workers lift stones, clear vines, rebuild collapsed galleries, sometimes correctly, sometimes creatively. You walk past them now, workers in wide-brimmed hats, chipping away at moss with care. A foreman points at a broken lintel and shakes his head. Wrong angle, he says. Nearby, a French scholar makes rubbings of inscriptions with rice paper and charcoal. You peer over his shoulder. It's a royal decree about land ownership and buffaloes. He thinks it's a prophecy. The jungle, meanwhile, is unimpressed. It creeps back in every chance it gets. Roots push through mortar. Lizards sunbathe on sanctuaries. Monkeys steal the archaeologists' lunches. You can't help but respect nature's editorial process. Through the 20th century, Angkor becomes a symbol of Cambodian heritage, of mystery, of endurance. Even through war, conflict, and neglect, it persists. You step aside as a young boy walks past, carrying a bucket of tools. He's part of a modern restoration team now, generations after Muhot. He hums a tune, something ancient, something local. He enters a small shrine and carefully dusts off a Buddha statue. Someone's left an offering, incense, a folded lotus, a crumpled cigarette box. It's messy, it's beautiful. You linger in the shade of a tree that likely sprouted during Mohot's time. It leans over a broken wall now mended with both ancient stone and modern concrete. It's not seamless, but it works. The jungle doesn't mind the patchwork. It only asks for patience. You watch as a tour group enters the main temple. Cameras click, hats bob. Someone tries to feed a monkey. The monkey responds with mild disdain. It's loud now, busier than it's been in centuries. But if you close your eyes, you can still hear Muhot whispering in awe. You can still hear monks chanting. You can still hear the silence that came before rediscovery. Because Angkor never vanished. It just waited, and it continues to wait for explorers, for monks, for mango vendors, for you. You float, not in a dream exactly, but in something close. The ground beneath you is no longer stone, or roots, or temple steps. It's air, data, light. Welcome to modern rediscovery. You're flying, well, sort of, aboard a small aircraft buzzing gently over the Cambodian jungle. Beside you, a scientist in cargo shorts and a sun hat fiddles with a tablet. LiDAR, he says, tapping the screen. This little thing sees through trees. You peer over his shoulder. The tablet displays a black and green topographic map. But as the aircraft glides over the treetops, the screen starts to fill with lines, shapes, ghostly geometries, roads, grids, canals, city blocks, temples not on any modern map. What you're seeing isn't just forest, it's buried cities, lost suburbs of Angkor, whole neighborhoods swallowed by time, now blinking back into view thanks to light detection and ranging LiDAR. Historians still debate how much of Angkor has been revealed by this technology and how much remains unseen, but there's no question what the jungle forgot, the lasers remember. You land near one of these invisible cities, somewhere just north of Angkor Thom. The ground looks like any other clearing. Grasses wave, cicadas scream. Nothing remarkable until your guide holds up a printout. "There," he says, pointing. "You're standing on a 900-year-old street." You blink, look down, see only soil and scattered sticks. But once he overlays the map, you see it. The way the land subtly shifts. The faint ditch to your left, an old drainage canal. The shallow depression behind you, a collapsed house mound. You kneel and press your palm to the dirt. It's warm, quiet, but not empty. Nearby, a team of archaeologists has set up a temporary shelter. Canvas tents, plastic tables, digital monitors, and one suspiciously large cooler labeled cold noodles. You're invited to sit in. They explain how LiDAR works, how lasers bounce through the canopy thousands of times per second, measuring every inch of elevation. Once filtered, the data reveals hidden structures, embankments, levees, staircases, even ponds that no longer hold water. You sip warm coconut water as they show you a recent scan, a perfectly square city grid, complete with a central temple, satellite shrines, and roads aligned with the cardinal directions, all hidden beneath dense forest just 10 kilometers from where tourists snap selfies at Angkor Wat. The implications? Monumental. Angkor wasn't just a capital with temples, it was a sprawling, planned metropolis, multiple cities, connected, engineered, intentionally aligned with cosmic principles and hydrological efficiency. This isn't revisionist history, it's recovered memory. You follow the team into the bush. Their machetes make short work of the underbrush. A cloud of mosquitoes follows, equally eager for discovery. Your socks are immediately soaked. The ground here is soft, veined with old root systems. A woman stops and gestures. Laterite blocks. You look closer. Sure enough, buried just beneath the topsoil, rows of rough-hewn stone form the corner of a foundation. The archaeologist squats, brushes away dirt, and uncovers a faint carving, just a swirl, a lotus petal, that's all it takes. You're hooked. Later, over bowls of instant noodles and pickled radish, the team tells stories of uncovering roads in patterns too precise to be accidental, of finding wooden artifacts preserved in mud, of collaborating with local communities who remember places no map recorded. One researcher tells you about an elder who led them to a dry pond. "My grandfather used to fish here," he said, "and his grandfather before him." There was no pond on their maps, until LiDAR confirmed it. Another recounts a time they found a statue base, long empty, only to have a child return the next day with the head, retrieved from a chicken coop where it had been used as a doorstop. You laugh. The jungle laughs with you gently. And then there are the setbacks. Storms that ruin camps. Insects that eat field notes. Technology that breaks down right as something astonishing appears on screen. But still they come, year after year, drawing lines between temples, paths, canals, reconnecting the threads of a tapestry so vast it once fed and housed hundreds of thousands. You walk back toward camp in the fading light, brushing leaves from your sleeves. At one point, you stop, not because you're tired, but because the air changes. You're standing atop something, not just earth, platform, a base, maybe a house, maybe a small shrine, no way to know yet, but it's there, you feel it. The LiDAR scans are exciting, the satellite maps are beautiful, but nothing replaces the quiet thrill of your foot brushing against a stone carved by someone who never imagined you'd be here. You crouch and listen, not with your ears, but with your breath. The jungle buzzes, the monitors beep faintly behind you. A distant monkey howls its evening song. You reach down, brush away some leaves, and uncover a corner of the past. It doesn't sparkle, it doesn't shine, but it waits. You return to Angkor one final time, not in the past, not quite in the present, but somewhere in between, where echoes meet footsteps. where moss grows between memory and motion, where the lost cities aren't ruins or data points, but living, breathing presences. You walk down the same stone path you once crossed barefoot in your dreams. But now it's busier, not chaotic, just alive. There's a monk with a smartphone, a child in Spider-Man sandals selling lotus blossoms, a tour guide pointing out carvings with a laser pen. Two travelers argue over which angle makes the towers look tallest. A wedding shoot is happening in front of a temple, the bride in a white dress, the groom in aviators, both standing under an umbrella so pink it hurts to look at. And in all this, Angkor simply watches. You find a quiet spot near the outer moat. The water reflects the sky again, just like before. Except this time, there's a drone flying overhead, and a small radio playing soft Khmer pop music beneath a tree. Nearby, a vendor sells coconut ice cream in coconut shells. You buy one. It's cold and creamy and tastes like summer vacation with a hint of archaeology. You sit on a low wall, the stone warm from the sun, and let the scene unfold. A group of local schoolchildren walks by, laughing, chattering, pointing at apsaras, and taking turns pretending to dance like them. A teacher claps her hands, they hush, sort of. You trail behind them down a gallery you'd long forgotten. The stone still smells faintly of dust and time. Someone has left an offering, fresh flowers, incense, a folded paper crane. There's a note written in careful script. For my grandmother, who taught me how to tell stories. You smile. As you walk through the central sanctuary again, the carvings shimmer differently now, not with mystery, but with familiarity. You've been here before, in sandal prints, in chants, in noodles, in silence. A musician sits in the shade of a Bodhi tree playing a tro, a traditional bowed string instrument. The melody wavers, bends, floats. It doesn't demand attention, it simply exists like the scent of frangipani drifting on the breeze. You lie down in the grass, the sounds settle around you, distant temple bells, murmuring voices, the lazy slap of sandals on stone. A gecko chirps from a column. You gaze up through a canopy of carved stone and tangled vines, and in that space between leaf and sky, something ancient breathes. It's not grand, it's not dramatic, it's not even particularly well lit, but it's real. The lost cities beneath the Cambodian jungle were never truly lost. They were just patient, waiting for the rain, waiting for the light, waiting for someone, maybe you, to notice the way a lotus bends or a wall leans or a story hums just beneath the silence. The jungle doesn't hide history, it sings it in slow motion. And here, in this moment, warm, quiet, full, you hear it. Not just with your ears, but with your breath, your bones, your dreams. So you close your eyes, not to forget, but to remember more deeply. Let the frogs sing, let the past whisper, let the lost city rest. Let's slow everything down now. You're still lying there, beneath the tree, beneath the stone, beneath the soft stretch of fading light. The sun is drifting lower, stretching its golden arms across the temple walls. Shadows lengthen like deep, sleepy yawns. Your breath follows suit, a little slower, a little deeper. You feel the earth beneath you, not heavy, but steady, solid, as if it's saying, you're held here, you're welcome. The air is warm, just warm enough. A soft breeze brushes your skin. It smells like wet leaves, sandalwood, and old rain. In the distance, the temple bell chimes once, then again, but slower this time. The sound rolls out over the trees, wraps around your thoughts, and invites them to rest. No more walking now, no more exploring, just stillness. You hear birds settling in the branches. Somewhere nearby, a monk chants in a voice as smooth as riverstone. His words don't matter, only the rhythm, only the feeling of them carrying you gently towards sleep. The city around you softens, the carvings blur, the paths blur, even time itself blurs. It's all gentle now, and as your eyelids grow heavier, you carry with you a quiet truth, that even in places long forgotten, even under layers of time and leaves, something sacred endures. It's not loud, it's not sharp, but it waits for you always, and now so gently, it lets you go. Sweet dreams.